Well, hello and welcome to today's episode of the Power of Your Mind podcast. You are listening to episode number 276. I'm Victoria Gallagher, Law of Attraction hypnotist and #1 best-selling author of Practical Law of Attraction. Align yourself with the manifesting conditions and successfully attract your desires. I'm also the founder of HipTalk.com and do I say HypnoCloud apps or do I say the new Believe app? Because the Believe app is like by now it should be launched, but we're still getting there. But anyway, it's going to put access of over 1,000 hypnosis recordings right in the palm of your hand. So be sure to download that app from the app stores, whether it's Believe or HypnoCloud or both. Anyway, today I am super, super excited to introduce this special guest that I have with me, Jenn Drummond. Jenn is a very accomplished, achieved business, successful woman. She's the founder and CEO of a thriving financial services company. Her move to Park City, Utah with her kids fed her family's passion for everything outdoors, from hiking and biking to skiing and mountain climbing, all my favorite things. But unfortunately, and fortunately, I guess, on a snowy evening in 2018, Jenn's life was totally knocked off its tracks. She was in a horrific car accident that brought her inches from death. All the authorities and experts agreed that she shouldn't have survived, yet somehow she did. And in the aftermath of that brush with death, it became crystal clear to Jenn that while she cannot control when she leaves this life, she, just like the rest of us, can control how we choose to live it. And Jenn's confrontation with death has imbued her with vigor, enthusiasm, commitment, full engagement in life. Now more than ever, she is focused on becoming an inspiration, a guide, a cheerleader, not just for her children, but for outdoor enthusiasts around the world. Urged on and supported by her family, Jenn has now become the first woman to climb the world's 7 second summits, the second largest mountains on every continent. And this is just the beginning of Jenn's journey. Motivating others to make the most of life is Jenn's next challenge. And she can be found at jenndrummond.com and on her YouTube channel at Jenn Drummond. I'll have all the links and everything on the show notes. She also has a new book coming out, Quit Proof, which is coming out January 16th, 2024. And Jenn is going to be sharing some of her insights today on climbing mountains and surviving a car wreck. So welcome to the show, Jenn.
What an intro. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for blessing us with your presence. I'm so glad you're here. You came across my desk as a potential person to interview on my show. And I will tell you, I mean, I'm getting like 10 to 20 requests a day.
Wow.
And you just like touched my heart.
No.
I mean, I like, I'll go around and I'll check people's social medias and, make sure that they're a good speaker and they can hold it, but I listened to a couple of your, especially the one where, you had just climbed to the top of some summit and you were like totally out of breath and you were emotional. And I've had that kind of sensation before, like I've run a few marathons. And so it's like, I kind of know that emotional feeling that I could just feel you. And it was just like, yep, I gotta have her on. I mean, after hearing about all of the amazing things that you've done. So, and not to mention, yeah, I mean, like you're a, mother of 7 and 8-figure business. And I mean, you've got it going on. So
The power of manifestation, right? There you go.
it really is. You are a true testament to this power. So I just want to kind of start a little bit with your backstory on how this all kind of got started. So you had this car accident that seemed to be like a major turning point for you. And so tell us how that was the start of life 2.0 for you.
Yeah, the car accident was definitely a line in the sand. And like it was one of those things where I was doing life. I feel a lot of us do life and we don't know how it happens, but we become a boiling frog of our circumstances where we just get into this pattern and this consistency and this is what we do and this is why we do it and blah 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 blah. And I don't even know if we really stop to say why. Or is this serving me? Or is this putting me on a path closer to where I want to be? Or is this actually pulling me away of who I want to be known as? So this car accident happens, I believe, not to me, but for me, because I needed something that drastic to wake me up and say, listen, this is your one magic life. Are you sure this is what you want your resume to look like when you are time to check out someday? And so that accident happened and I survived. The police said I shouldn't have. They rebuilt the accident about 50 different times, have not been able to rebuild a scenario where I walk away, let alone I'm living. And then to solidify that whole process was a good girlfriend of mine went running a few weeks after my accident, slipped on a rock, died instantly,
Mm.
total fluke accident. And that really even set me more into the spiral of why am I here and not her? And what's this mean? And what's that purpose? And blah, 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 blah. And then finally, I just stopped asking why and said, I'm here to live. I'm here to say, guess what? You have this one chance at life. Do things, experience things, try things. When certain things that get you excited, explore it, experience it, test it out. Who cares if it's messy? You don't matter. At the end of the day, when it's time to leave, there's so many things that we tell ourselves to keep us stuck or small or tiny. And I truly feel that this whole planet is for us to explore and experience. And so do it, experience it, try it, see what happens. Say yes to more things.
Yes, definitely. I totally agree with that. And so, I mean, you definitely have that adventurous spirit that, I think so many people they want and they need, but they're just afraid. And I mean, what do you think it is that really stops people, that gets in people's way from fully living? Because not everyone's blessed with a car wreck to straighten it all out for us. So what is that mindset that a person would need to jump, okay, yeah, of course, I want to live more, I want to live, but what is it that gets in people's way, do you think?
I think just routine,
Mhm.
right? Just doing the same thing and it's just easy. It's this groove that we do. So to break out of that routine, you can do tiny things. You can say, I'm going to take a shower in the morning instead of the end of the day. I'm going to move my workout to see, is that really the best time for me to do the workout? I'm going to drive a different way to the grocery store. I'm going to park on a different side of the parking lot of the grocery store. I mean, if you really think about it, we're so habitual in all the tiniest little things that we do. I know for me, I always park in this one lane of the grocery store. And just even getting out of that or going on vacation and visiting family and then coming back home. And then you sit and you ask yourself questions. Is this routine serving me?
Mhm.
Or did I just fall into this is what's happening? And I truly believe that when we start questioning and getting curious, not in a way of judgment or harshment or saying oh my gosh, you did this wrong or I can't believe, it's more of a, oh, there's other options. There's other ways. And maybe there's something else that will make it less stressful or give me more opportunity or align better with who I am as an individual, making it easier to have a happy, successful, fulfilled life.
Yeah. And that makes me also realize too, it's like when we're able to step out of that routine, we are going to be presented with so many more options and choices and opportunities that probably were right in front of us. But because we're just so stuck in that everyday mundane comfort zone, we're not really exposing ourselves to all the opportunities, that are right there, right in front of us.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I think opportunities evolve.
Hmm.
I started climbing because this accident happened and I was turning 40 in 2020 and I wanted to have that decade kick off with something magnificent. So I'm like, I'm going to climb a mountain. I'm going to climb a mountain for my 40th birthday. So I'd asked friends that were mountaineers, okay, if you were to climb one mountain in this whole world, what mountain would it be? And the general consensus was this mountain named Ama de Blanc, which is located in Nepal.
Okay.
So I'm like, okay, I'm going to sign up and I'm going to climb Ama de Blanc. Well, fast forward to 2020, COVID happens, and I signed up to be a homeschool teacher because all my kids are out of school. And one of my sons was struggling with his math homework. I'm like, buddy, we do hard things. You've got this. And he looks at me and he goes, if we do hard things, why are you climbing some mountain called I'm a Dumb Blonde instead of a real mountain called Mount Everest? I said,
Ah,
hey, listen,
he
buddy.
says that?
I said, "Ama de Blom, not I'm a dumb blonde." Okay, so cute, but not quite. And you know what? You finish your math homework and we'll look at Everest. And so then we did. And then he went to bed and I was still looking at Everest. And I thought, you know what? Why not Everest? I don't know. I wasn't really, it wasn't that I wasn't interested in it. It was just, it wasn't even in my realm. And he brought it into my realm. And so I said, yes. I called a coach. The coach said, sure, I can get you ready. Buy this book. We'll get you trained up. So I buy this book to train. And in the front of the book, there was a foreword about a lady who had got a Guinness World Record for skiing across the Alps. And in a conversation with my coach, I was joking. I'm like, I could have done that. I could have gotten a Guinness World Record. Like, I can suffer. And my kids would think I'm super cool. He's like, well, we'll find you a record. Don't worry. And I'm like, well, I'm not growing pumpkins or eating hot dogs. So I don't know. We'll see. And then we kind of like left the conversation. And I remember a few weeks later, he phones me on the phone. He's like, Jen, I got a record. I got a record. I got a record. I'm like, okay, what are you talking about? He's like, I think you should climb the 7-second summits, which are the second highest point in each continent. They're harder than the first 7. They haven't been done by a female. 7 continents, 7 mountains, 7 kids. Sounds like a jackpot to me. And I'm like, sure. I mean, I'd never slept in a tent on snow before, but sure, like let's try it. And it's just that ability to say, I don't know where this is going to go.
Yeah.
I don't know what it looks like, but it sounds cool. So let's lean into it and see what unfolds.
So before you even climbed any summit, you said, I'm going to climb 7 summits. Do I have that right?
Yeah, I mean, I'd climbed a little bit in Jackson Hole before, but yeah, before, like, it wasn't even before I hit Ama de Blanc. This goal had evolved into this next level. And, it was at the right time because I was at that point of like, what's my life mean? Oh, this is fantastic. I'm going to go do something that's totally out of my comfort zone, that all my limiting beliefs are trying to say no, no, no. And I'm going to say yes. And it's a big enough goal that if I fail, who cares? No one's done it before. Like, I'm expected to fail. So whatever progress I make is good. Like, I just had, right? Like, I was just looking at, like, let's look at what we could win versus what we could lose, because both options are always available to us. And that was the start of the pursuit.
I love it. I love it. So you've done the 7 second highest summits. So over what period of time did you do that?
Yeah, so I just finished. So my last climb was, I summited on June 1st, 2023, Mount Logan. It was my second attempt. So I tried in 2022, did not summit. So it's a climb that you do every May. So we had to wait a year and come back in 2023 and summited it. And I like failed K2 as well. So K2 was one of the mountains that took 2 times. Mount Logan was a mountain that took 2 times. All of the mountains were totally different than what I expected them to be, but perfect in their own way.
Right. And, I'm sure our audience is curious because, the infamous, Everest, like everyone, is kind of familiar with that one. So can you tell us just a little bit about what that was like and what that took to get
Yeah.
there?
So the crazy thing for me is that Everest was a training climb
Uh-huh.
because K2 is so much harder and more deadly than Mount Everest is. And they're both considered 8,000-meter peaks. So Everest is obviously the highest point in the world. K2 is the second highest point in the world. K2 is a whole different league than Everest is in difficulty and all the pieces to it. So I went into Everest saying, okay, I'm going to try to summit this mountain. And my goal is to learn, what should I eat? How does my body handle lack of oxygen? What should my layering system be so I don't get too hot or too cold? Because I need to have that all figured out to be able to summit K2. So I do feel like having a goal after Everest helped not make Everest feel so big and
Mm.
helped it be more manageable. And then I had, okay, here's my intention for Everest. And so then even if I didn't summit, I still had wins in that pursuit because I would learn about my body and what I should be fueling and how I should be dressing and all those different things. Now, we did summit, which is, super fun and exciting, but yeah, Everest is a big pursuit, but I would say of the people that don't summit Everest, 50% of those people, at least, they don't summit because of the mental game, not the physical game.
It's definitely more of a mental
It is. It's a mental
challenge.
game,
Yeah.
definitely. Especially nowadays. I mean, back in the day when the original people summited Everest and you didn't have all the support teams or all, like, they've commercialized Everest pretty much in the last decade or so. When you didn't have that type of stuff, like, Everest would be unbelievably hard. I mean, even when we went through the ice fall, which is the challenging section at the base of it, I went through the ice fall 4 times.
Is
Every
that where
time
they put the ladder
that's
across?
where they put the ladders,
Yeah.
yeah. And every time it was a different route.
Mhm.
So you can imagine, like, if you didn't have teams that helped set that route or adjust it when things shifted or changed, there would be a whole different monster to figure out how to get through there. But nowadays, it's really, as me climbing it, I'm following ropes that somebody else set and made sure that that was safe for me to cross.
That's amazing. But I mean, it's just what you've done is like so, so amazing. I mean, the only thing I can like sort of relate and compare that to is, just kind of having been a marathon runner and, and I had there was this one challenge back in Florida. It was called the storm and there was five, it's like so rather than just like taking on this one, it's like, oh, let's do this storm. And so you had to complete five, some were half marathons, some were marathons, but it was a series of five. And it's like, boy, it's like once you get to that fifth one, it was amazing. So what would you say the like your biggest takeaway, was like what did you learn from that experience? Like what was that, you
Yeah,
know?
so each mountain kind of has its own little lesson. So for me, Mount Everest was about being this huge, big person. And Mount Everest never changes. The weather changes, the circumstance changes, or whatever. And so all of that noise happens around her, but she stays true to who she is. I'm still the largest, biggest mountain in the world. And all this noise can happen, but it's not going to change who I am. And so whenever I'm in different circumstances, it really just helps me to tap into that Mount Everest energy and be like, hey, these storms can happen on my surface, but at the core, I'm who I am and I'm going to stay true to that and the storms will pass.
Amazing. That's a great lesson just to get grounded and and you'll always have that. You always have that. So moving forward into your other major part of your successful life, I mean, you don't just, summit all these amazing mountains and become a world record holder of summiting mountains. You also run an 8-figure business. I mean, most people can't even say they run a 6 or let alone 7-figure business, but you run an 8-figure business. So tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, so that business is my baby, right? I got into finance, so it does help me in the right industry, right? Certain industries definitely have capabilities of making different income streams. So being in that industry was helpful. I love helping people with their finances because I love the fact that I feel like money is energy. And when we like what we put into the world, we're compensated for that service and people can retire their family. They can send their kids to college. They get to buy that dream home. Like their dreams come down to being able to afford them. And so they work for these pieces to come together. So it's so rewarding to be able to help people achieve goals. And so for a long time, it was in the financial service sector. And I have, like, anything we achieve, any mountain we climb, metaphorically or physically, it takes a team. And so I have a fantastic team that does fantastic work for people. And we've been in business since 2005. And our success just is a testament to all the people that show up every day to help others.
That is amazing. Now, I mean, it doesn't, it takes more than just an idea and a team, and money and all of that to run a business. Just like you mentioned with your climbing, it's the mental aspect of that. It's not the physical. I mean, the physical's obviously included, but it's mental things. So what is the mental mentality? What is the mentality that you need to have to run an eight-figure business?
Yeah. I mean, you have to be so steadfast in your why and your what. And because everything is going to, I mean, it's almost like being Mount Everest in that position, because everything is coming at you, from market shifting to, setbacks in people's lives to, I mean, you're managing so many emotions for people. Money's a very emotional component to their lives. And so just helping be that space of steady and sturdy so that they can borrow your confidence and borrow that peace and carry it into their own lives. So if you waver, then everybody around you is going to waver. You really have to be like, A is A, this is it. Here's what we're doing. We work the plan, work the plan, work the plan. And having that mentality just helps everything come together.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're so right about it being such a emotional thing. I don't know if you know, I was in the financial services industry as well. Um, Prior to this, I quit my job. I quit my job as a stockbroker in 1999, but I did that, for about 8 years. And it was just interesting when, people would come and sit down. I mean, people have a really hard time talking about money, getting clear about money. There's obviously so many limiting beliefs around money. And, people would actually, they would rather, it was funny, people would rather talk about their sex life than they would like to talk about their money, because there's so much shame around it. I mean, there's just shame around, people just a person saying, I want to make $1 million, I want to earn a lot of money. There's just a lot of shame around it. And so it is interesting that you're dealing with people's emotions, because it really is people are so identified with their money having or not having. It really impacts people on a deep level.
Yeah, no, definitely. And being able to see that and witness that just brought that awareness into my own life. And I'm like, I'm not hanging my success shingle on whether I have money in the bank or not.
Yeah.
I'm hanging my success shingle on how many people I'm impacting and
Mm.
empowering to have power over agency over their own pursuits or their own ideas or their own goals. And so for me to shift from finance into the mindset piece really was a natural shift, because I was already doing it anyways, just in the wrapper of finance. Now I'm more doing it in the wrapper of, hey, we can be these multifaceted individuals and achieve in so many different areas. And go from a life of success to significance, because significance is really where the joy and the fulfillment comes from.
Absolutely. Yeah, I love that. So you not only have summited these seven mountains, you've not only created a seven-figure business, but you've also brought up seven children. I
I'm in the
mean,
process of bringing up 7 children.
right. But still, like, so what, like, what is the age range of these children? And like, just what is it? I mean, that just seems like a lot. I mean, that's like more than the Brady Bunch.
It's a lot. Yes, we're I'm a basketball team with 2 cheerleaders. Like, literally, I have 5 boys and then twin daughters. And I struggled with fertility issues. So I went down the path to have assistance there and tried different medications. And then all of a sudden, one of them worked to the nth degree and got a bunch of eggs and it became embryos. And we had our first son. And then I had embryos left over. I was like, oh, wow. Okay, I need to really think. I don't know why I didn't take it very serious in the front end, but I'm like, I really need to think of what this means. And in Michigan, where I lived at the time, you kind of have three things that you can do with embryos. You can use them,
Mhm.
you can donate them to somebody else, which to me at that time felt my whole life, I'm going to be like, are you my kid? Are you my kid? Are you my kid? Or you can destroy them. And at the time, which I don't know the rules nowadays, the doctors or the clinics would give them to you to destroy. And
Ooh.
that just felt like bad karma. I'm like, I have this one child that's going to get in a car wreck because I didn't respect life later on. And that was just my story around it. Like we all have stories around all things, but the doctor was like, you'll probably get 3 or 4 kids based on the quality of these embryos and blah, 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 blah. And at that time, I'm like, you know what? These all fertilized. These are mine. I'm going to use them and whatever happens, happens. And that's the way that it's supposed to be. So you have 4 kids and you still have embryos on ice. You're like, oh goodness. Okay. I have 5 kids. I still have embryos on ice. I'm like, oh my gosh. Like, can I go back on this saying? Can I like take a different path? Like 5 kids is a lot. And I knew that if I changed my mind on that, I'd never trust myself again. And I needed to trust myself because at the end of the day, we're all we have. And we have to be confident in the decisions that we make. And said, okay, well, we're going to plant the last ones. And they were twins. So I have seven kids and it's a lot, but my dad was one of 13.
Oh my
So I
goodness.
grew up with like a huge Catholic family. We always had big Catholic. So it wasn't this, I had no concept of what I was getting into. I got to witness firsthand what beauty a huge family can bring you if you allow it. And so yeah, so 7 kids later, no more embryos. And my oldest is 16 now, and my youngest are 10.
Nice, nice.
Yeah.
And so what do they think about all of your adventures? And are they supportive? Are they good kids? I mean,
Oh yeah. Like I mean, I'm so lucky. Like there's so much love, there's so much cheerleading, there's so much goodness. Are they mad about it sometimes? Yeah. You want to know why? Because I'm doing life right next to them. I'm in the
Mhm.
same arena as they are. They don't want to do their homework. I don't want to necessarily do a workout. They don't want to eat healthy. I don't want to eat healthy either, but I have to because I'm expecting my body to do big things. So I have to fuel it properly.
Mhm.
And when you want to do big things, guess what? You have to sacrifice and you have to go train and you have to do workouts and you have to do this stuff because that's what gets you in a position to be able to do these bigger things. So they don't have a mom that like cuts some slack. They have a mom that says, guess what? To get from A to B to C to D, here's the steps that you need to do, and you can't skip them.
Absolutely. They're so lucky to have such an amazing role model. So do they seem like they're lined up to do big things in their lives as well?
What's fun is when I did Mount Everest, I involved the kids' school in that pursuit because I was going to be gone for a long time and I was worried about how they would handle everything. So I went into school and I talked to them. I said, hey, I'm going to be gone. My kids might need a little extra love. Just have a little grace with them. Here's what's going on. And the school was like, well, let's do an Everest campaign. So what's your Everest goal? So all the little kids like made hikers and in the hallway and they put what their Everest goal was. And then when I was on Everest, they tracked me. And so they all knew what was happening. And then when I came home from Everest, I got to see the kids and they'll come over to my house with my children. They'll be like, you're the mama that climbed Everest. I'm like, I am. I want to climb Everest someday. I'm like, you can. I'll be your biggest cheerleader. You let me know when you're ready. And so it's just fun to them because it's tangible because I'm there.
Yeah. That's so cool. I mean, so you basically, I mean, you've challenge yourself in the mind, the body, the heart. Cause I would definitely say with, the family, I mean, that takes heart. It all takes heart ultimately at the end of the day. It all takes mind, it all takes physical, but each of these separate, areas, I mean, obviously the physical challenges, the physical challenges you've gone through with your own, fertilization. I mean, so out of all of this, like, what would you say has been the most difficult, the hardest part out of this whole pursuit that you've
I would
undertaken?
say, looking back at it now, the hardest part of all of my lessons in life was really the fertility issues. Because here I am, a female. Naturally, we're supposed to be able to have children, and my body isn't doing what it's naturally supposed to do. So the language that I had, I'm like, how can what's not feminine about me? What's broken about me? Why am I not able to do what women should naturally be able to do? And that was just a big mental battle for myself to navigate. Then when it came to building a business or climbing a mountain or doing whatever, I wasn't having that language in my head of I should be able to do this because I'm X. Right? Like
Yeah.
it really set my mindset up to like, oh, I can achieve. Like finally, my body figured out how to have kids, and then like we're on the train to have kids. Right? There's 7 of them, but it was having that resilience there that's been able to transfer into all other areas of my life, and that's why I think it's so important for us in any category. If we're struggling physically or mentally or emotionally, like work on an area that you're good at or that's easier for you. So if the physical part's easier for you and you start doing hard things there and gradually get better, that trains your body to be able to do that same methodology in your emotional or mental mindset. And then you just kind of keep getting things a little bit harder and a little bit better, and you build more resilience and you start living a more authentic life.
That is really good advice. Definitely. So start with something that, you can do. And it also is going to build up the confidence, that like, well, if I could do this, then I can do this other thing. And so, I mean, that really makes a lot of sense. So you have these challenges that you've developed, that people can participate in, and they can also like climb these amazing mountains. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. So I climbed Mount Everest, which was a magical experience as one can imagine. And the next spring, I had friends going to climb again, right? Because some of them didn't summit the first time or they're getting ready to go, and you kind of become buddies with people on that pursuit. And I was so sad that I wasn't going. I'm like, "Oh, I wish I was going. It's such a fun experience." And so I said, "You know what? I'm going to climb Mount Everest from the comfort of my home." And
Ooh,
so I said, okay, I put together a 40-day challenge because I truly believe like 40 days is the magic number to have a habit stick. And I'm going to break up climbing Mount Everest into 40 days. And I'm going to do it by climbing stairs or doing step ups or going on hikes or just anything that was around my house that made it easy. And then to make it fun, I allowed some people to do it with me. And so we were like, okay, every day checking in on each other and saying, hey, we would park like at the parking structure and then walk up the steps instead of taking the elevator or just like teeny tiny little things. And it was amazing how over 40 days you can climb Mount Everest just by doing little bits every single day. And it was so much fun that my friends are like, okay, what's our next thing? What's our next thing? I said, well, I haven't made a next thing. And so then I started thinking about areas in my life that I like to have the intention of a challenge behind. And I developed these other challenges. So in the summertime, we do a mindset challenge. In October, we do a parenting challenge or relationship challenge. In January, I launched a leadership challenge. And it's really 40 days of intentions with accountability and that like cohort to experience the experience in. And we cheer each other on and become better people.
I love it. I love it. So as far as if somebody wanted to participate in, say, the Everest challenge,
Yeah.
like what kind of daily commitment would they need to make? And is there a tracking device that tracks all that, or like how does that work?
Yeah. Okay. So we set up like I'll make a training calendar or I'll make a calendar for the 40 days. And then when they sign up for the challenge, they'll get the calendar. That just allows them to look at their personal schedule and say, you know what? I'm going to have a longer day on Thursday and my work schedule isn't going to allow that. So I want to move my Thursday to a Tuesday, and it
Got
allows
it.
them to kind of swip it up and make whatever works for them. Honestly, you'd be surprised. Like if you get a step, like a 12-inch step that you can buy on Amazon for $10 and you have 20 minutes, you can get 1,000 feet
Mhm.
in 20 minutes. And if you think about Mount Everest, it's 29,029 feet. Okay, so that would be 20 minutes a day for, 29 days. And we do this exercise over 40 days because you need rest and recovery and self-care days and these different pieces. And you need days where it's like, hey, I'm not climbing today and I still have another day to make it up. So I think that's the thing. Everybody thinks, oh my goodness, it's going to take forever and I don't have that much time and I'm not that fit or whatever else it is. Like it literally can be done in 20 minutes throughout the day. And you don't even have to do it all at one time. Like a lot of times when I'm having a busy day, I know that my staircase is 10 feet. And so every time I would walk past my back entryway and I walk past the staircase, I'd make myself do a lap real quick. And I
Mhm.
knew on days that I needed to do 1,000 feet, I just had to do my staircase, you know, so many times. And then during that day, and then I got my feet in. I didn't
I
have to
love
do
it.
all at one time. So, and it's super fun because it's like we share. I have some yoga day things that I put in the video app that you can do a recovery with a yoga or a stretching class or whatever. But um, it's just fun because it's so fun to see people accomplish something and say, like, I climbed Mount Everest.
Yeah, no, that
Fun
is
thing to say.
great. Yeah, that is great. I would also like couple that with like, what does that mean that you now get to do as because if you could climb Everest, you could do anything.
Do anything.
And, so like I've had these little challenges myself. It's like, well, if I could do that, then I know I can do this. It's like, I don't know, I just kind of attach another
Yeah.
another goal to it. So that's very cool. And like just tell me a little bit about the upcoming one with the parenting that's coming up in October.
Yeah, so the parenting one's coming up in October. And again, I have 7 kids, so I have to be very intentional to make sure I'm spending time with each one of them and I'm catering to their needs and they don't get pushed aside, which is very easy to do in the hustle and bustle of life. So I put together this challenge and it's like silly. Like one day we'll have breakfast with the lights off with just candles.
Oh,
Kids think that's the coolest thing in the whole world, right? I mean, it takes you 2 seconds to shut the lights off, eat cereal, and have candles, and just have that be like a little intimate experience that they remember. And so it's 40 days of these little teeny tiny things that just change up your routine, that your kids go to school. They say, we had breakfast today with candles instead of lights on. And they love it.
that is so cool. It's a great bonding experience and also teaches them, doing things to, get out of their comfort zone and to challenge themselves. So that is absolutely amazing. So, and then let's talk a little bit about your book. So you've got this new book coming up. Tell us a little bit about what that's about.
Yeah, so I have documented a whole bunch of my experiences on the mountains, right? Like I'm the girl that brought a hair dryer to Everest Base Camp. I'm the girl, like, I mean, it's just fun. And I share these stories and then I take
What
some of
you
the
wouldn't, the other people don't.
yeah. No, I remember like when I was interviewing companies to climb Everest, I'm like, I have long blonde hair. I'm gonna get sick if I can't dry my hair and have to go up this mountain. So I called the first company that I was looking at. They're like, yeah, no, that's not an option. I was like, oh, okay, fair enough. So I called the second company and I'm like, hey, I want to bring a hair dryer. Do you think I could use the generator once a week to be able to dry my hair? I'm just worried about, getting sick or whatever. And they're like, yeah, we could probably let you use the generator once a week. That seems reasonable. And then the third company I called and I said the same thing. And they're like, hey, do you need a mirror? I'm like, yeah, you know what? I need a mirror. Yes, I do. That's the company I want to go with. They're like
Yes.
saying, right? And the funny thing is that a company in Utah named Goal Zero gave me a battery. So that was solar powered. So I could actually dry my hair with a solar powered battery, which I'm like, oh, this even feels better from an economical standpoint. But then I was like, wait a minute, now I have to dry my hair out in public. Like, how embarrassing is this? That I'm this girl like hair drying her hair at Everest Base Camp. And I was embarrassed, but I'm like, this is something I need. I'm not asking for shrimp at base camp. I'm asking for something that will take care of basic needs. And then it was a little embarrassing, but when I went to the next mountain, I had a handful of women come up to me and say, thank you for allowing me to be a female in this environment and not pretending that I don't have needs that would make this much easier for me to have success. And I realized at that point, it is so important for us to ask for what we need to succeed, because not only does it help us, but it gives others permission to do the same thing.
It absolutely does. Yeah. And so, yeah, just to listen to that inner voice too, because, you said to yourself, I mean, it wasn't something that people were doing. You said to yourself, I need a hair dryer. This is why I need it. And, you didn't stop at the first company and you just knew in your mind that, I mean, this is something that's important. It might seem like a insignificant small thing if you don't really get in there and think like, yeah, this is going to be something that I could get sick running around this cold environment with
What
long wet
hair?
hair.
Yeah, I mean,
What
my
are you
hair
going
was
to do? Chop all your
24
hair off?
hours. Right, right. I'm like, I'm not cutting my hair off. So nice
Right.
try. So yeah, so that was just one of there's so many lessons from this pursuit. So I wanted to capture them and share them. So I put together a book. I'm titling it Quit Proof,
Mm,
because there's things that set our heart on fire. We can't quit on those things. Like, we need to have the resilience and the courage to lean into them and bring them to life, even if they don't fit our current paradigm. And so the book walks you through different things to expect when you're chasing big goals, whatever they may be, and to help you stay resilient in that pursuit, because the world only gets one of you, and we want you to show up as authentically as you can be.
yeah. Well, I'm very, very grateful that the world produced one of you because, you are amazing and you've just done it all. I mean, you are the epitome of like you can do it all. Anybody who thinks that they can't balance because they've got two kids, or whatever. I mean, you're such an inspiration. I mean, you really what would you say to the, woman or man out there who, is dealing with challenges of trying to have it all, but they seem to not be able to fit all of the aspects of their life together, and maybe they have some kind of excuses that they're telling themselves, or they're playing that smaller game. What would be the overarching thing that they could a mantra, if you will, that they could just tell themselves, or that how they could step into this full big life that you're this game this big game that you're playing in your life?
Yeah, I think it really helps to say this game is going to end. And I don't know when it's going to end. But if it was to end next week, am I doing the things that I want to be doing? Am I showing up the way, is my story being written the way that I want it to write? And all of a sudden, when you put these deadlines on you, and you all of a sudden like are faced with, oh, wow, you know, I'm 40 years old. I feel like I have forever in front of me. That's that someday concept. Someday, someday, someday. And all of a sudden a decade goes by and nothing's changed or nothing's shifted. So I really feel like first it's putting this deadline up close and saying, okay, what can I do that would be fun or exciting or something new? And do that. Like, do that one thing. Like, I look at my year and I say, okay, I want to do something special this year, that if I went to a cocktail party, I would have a cool story to share that isn't from 2021 when I climbed Everest. I need to have something new. I don't want to be that player that played football in high school and is 20 years later still talking about the football game in high school. Like, it's our job to say, this is my year. What's one cool thing that I want to do? And in a year, no matter what kind of situation you're in, you can do one cool thing, right? And it starts with that one thing. And then that momentum and that feeling is in you. And now it's so much easier to replicate because you did it. And now it just makes it easier.
I like that. The one cool thing a year challenge.
Yes, yes.
And yeah, it sounds like the biggest takeaway ultimately is like you just never know when it's going to be taken away from you. So live life now because yeah, like so many people, think that it's like, yeah, I've got all this time, but you never know. And it could all end. And so what do you really want to do? If you only had, a week, a day, a year, how would you live your life? And I love that. So this has been just I could talk to you all day about all of this. This has been super inspiring. So how do people reach you? What's the next step that you want people to take after hearing this? If they're inspired, which I know that they are, to start living a little bit more, like the Jenn Drummond way.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think the best place to visit is my website. So it's jendrummond.com, because that is home to links to everything else. So if you have like a social media channel that you like better than another, you can find it there. If you want to follow the blog or be a part of the newsletter or join one of the challenges, join the community, because it's a lot more fun with more people there.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being on the show. And just for our listeners, just remember, Jenn also has a podcast, Seeker Summit, which is, you can get there from her website. She's got her YouTube channel. She's got her book coming out in January, which was, remind me of the name of the book again that's coming
Quit
out.
proof. Yep. Quit
Quit
proof.
Proof, and that's coming out in January. These challenges are starting up. I highly encourage you. I think I'm gonna sign. I'm not a parent, just to my cats, but so I won't be joining the parent challenge. But I definitely am interested in that Everest challenge. That sounds really fun. So thank you so much for being on the show, and thank you, listeners, for listening to another amazing episode of the Power of Your Mind podcast. Any last words?
I just appreciate having the opportunity to share the story. So thank you so much.
Thank you. And thank you so much. And where the heck is the, oh,